call this meeting to order. May we have roll call, please?
Commissioner Bennick?
Here.
Commissioner Chapman?
Here.
Commissioner Hoyler? Here. Commissioner Purvey?
Here.
Commissioner Smith? Vice Chair Summers?
Here.
Chair Blair?
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. At this time, we'll stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all.
May we have a current events report, please?
Madam Chair, members of the Commission, good evening. Two items for you this evening. First, the revised Surprise Uniform Development Code is nearing the completion of its open comment period. We've gotten a few responses, and we got a complete review and response from Luke as well. So we'll be reviewing those. Simultaneously, it's going through its legal review, and I anticipate that we'll be bringing that back to the Commission in June. Also, just a follow-up from last month, things are going great out at the Auto Mall. Toyota is nearing their final building inspections, and Ford was issued their building permit last week, and they should be breaking ground very quickly. So with that, I have nothing else unless there's any questions from the Commission.
Okay, thank you. Do you have a staff report or anything to add to that? Okay. At this time, I'm going to have a call to the public, anyone wishing to speak on anything other than what is on the agenda tonight. I do have Jim Barton that would like to speak.
Would you like me to come up there?
Yes, sir.
Hi.
Hi, how are you?
My name's, oh heavens, you don't need that, or I don't need that. My name's Jim Barton. My company, Big AZ Promotions, works with the car dealerships in the Auto Mall that he was referring to on things like signage and balloons and all of the things that aren't allowed. I'm here actually, and I was looking for the document because it's part of the current ordinance, but I'm here to find out if I understand that ordinance correctly, that a tent, or excuse me, a canopy under 800 square feet is permitted without having to have a special permit or any permits. We're going into the summer months, of course, soon, and there's going to be a need for some places on each of those dealership lots where customers shopping for a car can be out on the lot and still find some shade and maybe a cold bottle of water or whatever. So the dealers are interested in being able to put up canopies like a pop-up tent, but actually more professional than that. So something up to, say, a 20 by 20 without having to go through a permit process for that. That and a lot of other things that they'd like some leniency on, because the thing that should be evident, I think, to anyone is that a car dealership is unusual in that the product that they're selling has to be displayed outside. They can't put it inside. So I can go to Walmart and they can have tons of signage inside the walls of the store. They can have displays and balloons and all of that. But a car dealer is differentiated in many ways, but in one of them being that they have no ability to warehouse the cars inside where they could then put balloons and signs and other things. So because they're, by the nature of the product, they have to display outside, they need a little more flexibility and leniency. Certainly no one wants to see, I don't think, the neighborhood to go to heck in a handbasket because it looks horrible, but a little more flexibility in signage and things that would lend themselves to making it look like they're actually in the car business instead of a bunch of funeral homes. Anyway, that's another subject. I really would like to get to the answer of whether or not there is a specific, and I'm sorry I don't have it with me so I could read it or actually give you a copy of it. I apologize. But it seemed to me to be pretty clear that as long as it was 800 square feet or less and a canopy, not a tent, so it doesn't have walls or anything, but just a canopy, if that is permitted without having to go through a permit process.
Madam Chair, members of the Commission, I would highly recommend that the gentleman contact Development Services on Monday morning, and they can best advise him as to what would need a temporary use permit regarding the dealerships.
Can you provide that phone number?
I'm sorry, I don't know it off the top of my head.
Okay.
But if he would come down to City Hall and make contact with them, they can, if he does need a permit process, they can give him all of the information right then and there and explain how to fill it out. They can also give him a copy of the temporary sign policy that was adopted by the City Council.
Okay.
Yeah, okay, thank you very much.
Anyone else wishing to speak? Seeing none, I close that. And at this time, I'm going to ask for the minutes, a motion for the minutes of the last meeting, please.
So move.
Second.
Commissioners, please vote at this time.
I'm waiting for one more.
I'm going to guess it's you. Steve.
That's not working for me. I think I jumped the gun on it.
Yeah, you gotta wait.
I'm voting yes.
The motion carries with a vote of 5 ayes, 1 abstain, and 1 absent.
Thank you. Moving forward at this time, Christina.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the Commission. My name is Christina Ramirez, and I'm the Neighborhood Services Supervisor. We come to you today with the Public Services Grant public hearing with regards to the Community Development Block Grant planning process for the 2014-2015 funding allotment. What we hope to do today is give you a little bit of background on the Community Development Block Grant funding process. We will give the applicants an opportunity to give their presentations, and then we would hear any public comments having to do with regard to community needs. Just a little bit of background. The City of Surprise receives on a yearly basis an entitlement from the Department of HUD. Last year we received approximately $512,181, approximately or exactly. And the funding allotment for 2014-2015 has not been distributed yet. We understand we're to receive that information about mid-March. So everything we do is based on prior year funding. If we were to look at this allotment specifically, we can set aside up to 15% of the funding for public services. At this time, we allow different nonprofits and service providers within the City of Surprise to propose through this application process what they could do and what services they could provide to Surprise residents. In this instance, we would be discussing approximately $76,000 available. We have a process of a 5-year consolidated plan. Within that 5-year consolidated plan, we go through pretty extensive surveying and focus groups and the like with the community in order to determine needs of that community. On a yearly basis, we go through and we reaffirm what the priority for funding is for that year, not only for projects, but also for public services. And within that process, we have this public service application process. We had an application period from December 23rd to January 23rd. We are starting the public hearing process with today's meeting where the applicants have an opportunity to speak. And then from here, we will go to March 6th, where we will actually discuss recommendations for funding that will be furthered to the council through a workshop and a second public hearing on April 1st and 15th, respectively, with an ultimate submission of our HUD plan on May 15th. One thing to keep in mind when awarding this funding and when considering the types of projects to fund is that a national objective has to be met. This is a national objective set by HUD, and that would mean that either you are benefiting a low-income individual, you are benefiting a low-income area, or you are benefiting a special clientele. If it does not meet one of these objectives, then it does not qualify. For area benefit, basically, it means that 51% of the residents within that area, and more specifically, census tract is how HUD defines the area, have to be at or below median income. And so we have to have an area, I'm sorry, let me rephrase that. 51% of the residents have to be at or below 80% of median income for that area. The only area that qualifies within the city of Surprise is the original town site. A limited clientele is a specific special group that has been designated by HUD, such as adults with disabilities, seniors, people that are homeless, or another way to award funding is to qualify individuals that are receiving benefits that they are at or below 80% of median income. So either the person has to qualify, the area has to qualify, or has to be a special group as designated by HUD. With that, as per the consolidated plan, some of the high priorities included childcare, healthcare, job training, recreation and education, public safety, fair housing, services for seniors and homeless persons, and drug abuse counseling and treatment, or welfare. By that, they mean utility assistance or rental assistance, that sort of thing. So here is a basic summary where we have Arizona Bridge to Independent Living that are submitting an application for a surprise program for home accessibility are requesting an amount of $34,558. Basically, the way that they're proposing the program is that they would income qualify each individual that they would be benefiting. Benavia has adult day, home delivered meals, and childcare, and a family resource center that they provide as a service to residents. They're requesting $24,997. Through their prior programs, we have funded them 2 prior years. This is a third year that we're considering funding Benavia. They would benefit low to moderate income clientele. So every person that they're benefiting or that they're giving a benefit to would be income qualified, and they would keep records on those families. Central Arizona Shelter Services is a regional emergency shelter. They're requesting $8,000 to help people that have identified themselves as surprise residents. This is a limited clientele. St. Mary's Food Bank is looking for funding to continue their emergency food box program. They're looking for $20,000, and they also benefit a low to moderate income clientele. We have a couple of new applicants. One of them is Gotta Run, which are looking for funding to help give accessibility for their track program so that they can pay rental fees and the like for local tracks for people that wanted to continue in this health program. The reason I highlighted low to moderate clientele is because that's the only way that I can see that these people would qualify that would benefit from this program, is that they would have to go through an income qualification process and then an intake process, and they would have to have some record keeping and the like. I bring these specifics up so that that can be discussed as part of their presentation. Paradise Honors High School has also proposed a athletic type program to buy equipment and mats and a little bit of staff fees. Again, it's the same issue where they are not in a low income area per se, so they would have to qualify every person benefiting from this program. So again, that would be a question to ask. This is a very rough kind of summary having to do with ABLE. Again, this is a high priority in the consolidated plan currently. St. Mary's Food Bank, they provide a great amount of units and for the funding that they do request. Now, of St. Mary's Food Bank, I believe, has been funded in 4 previous years, so this would be their 5th application to us. Gotta Run, we would have to assure who the beneficiaries are, that they fall within the criteria, and that they have the staff and ability to do the intake, income verification, and the like. Benavia has continued to provide services to income qualified residents. There have been some issues in the past having to do with some performance and getting programs out and running and getting the units. We have had a few situations where funding has had to be reprogrammed from one program to another because projected numbers are not easily met. And so they have been a little behind the ball on getting the money into the community. I know that in discussing with them, we do have a lot of communication with them, and so they do talk about the marketing and the amount of leverage actually necessary in order to keep their program successful and still make them accessible to the people that need them. So that might be some points of discussion with them. Central Arizona Shelter Services, this is not their first application. They have applied in the past and they have not been funded. It is not homelessness assistance is not a high priority in our consolidated plan, but I can tell you that it is a high priority of the council, and that they have spoken to me most recently when we did the point in time count for how many homeless people we could find within the city of Surprise. There was a great concern and there was great interest in assuring that we were providing as many services as possible. Paradise Honors High School, same comments as the past regarding difficult to assure who the beneficiaries are. So maybe the presenter would like to comment on what systems they would like to put in place in order to assure that those requirements are met. So with that, after hearing all of the presenters, we're asking the presenters to keep their presentation to approximately 3 minutes. And a couple of them did bring some handouts that we will go ahead and hand out before the presenter comes up. And then you will have the opportunity to ask any questions that you have. Now, just for the sake of the presenters, we are not going to be discussing or making decisions tonight. Tonight is solely to hear presentations and to be able to ask and answer questions. And the next meeting would be March 6th. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and read off. We did receive comment cards from the different individuals, and so we're going to invite them to come up here to give their presentation. And the first person would be John, who is the representative from St. Mary's Food Bank.
Good evening, and thank you for having us out from St. Mary's Food Bank. We really appreciate it. My name's John Kazera. In the past few years, as she mentioned, we've partnered together, and you've helped us provide food to literally thousands of people here in the Surprise community. Together, we've really made an impact, and we're very grateful for that. As you are likely aware, hunger rates in Arizona are remaining pretty steady. Poverty rates are remaining pretty steady, and recent research that we have access to would say that child hunger has increased slightly from 28.7%, I believe it was, to now 29.9% here, specifically in Arizona. And that's a challenging statistic. Digging a little deeper into the research, we're seeing that the challenge here in Surprise is that nearly 27,000 residents here qualify for food assistance. That means that they meet the poverty guidelines that the USDA set forth for us to provide food to them. Recently, I was able to meet an elderly man named Alberto, and I'll share his story because it's kind of a typical client that we would meet. It's not often that we see people that are homeless because they'll find a shelter. We're serving usually low and moderate income folks or folks that are on a fixed income. So I met Alberto, and he shared with me that he lives in one of the Salvation Army shelters, but he has a lot of medical bills. He's a past veteran, and he has no family in the area, and so each week he comes to the food bank, and he needs to get an emergency food box. An emergency food box for him it's a gap measure. It supplements his income, it supplements his medical bills, because a lot of times elderly and families with children need to choose each month: do I pay rent, do I pay my bills, or do I eat? And for him, it was exactly that situation. But he was joyful, and it really the reason I bring him up is because he not only came to get food, but he also brought his friends that didn't have cars, and so it was really touching to me. And so Alberto is one of the reasons that I am so passionate about our food box program. Here in Surprise, we estimate that we'll be distributing about 14,000 emergency food boxes in the coming fiscal year, 14 to 15. Like I said, this program targets elderly, targets youth, and targets working poor families. With a grant of $20,000, we would expect to be able to provide about 2,700 food boxes, which would feed over 8,000 meals into the community. And so I think the impact of that is not very questionable. And like I said, here in Surprise, it's been a long time standing program, and we'd love to continue that at the level we're doing. So thank you.
Thank you.
Questions?
Summers. Any questions?
I do have one question, and that is the cost of a particular food box.
The cost of a food box, and I'll share what's in a box. So in a box is typically rice, beans, a grain like cereal, a protein, and then usually 6 to 7 canned fruits and vegetables. The cost is variable, so from year to year based on prices and what we're getting donated in and the cost of fuel to transport the food. This year we've estimated that a food box, the cost is $7.50.
Okay. Yeah, I just was curious about that.
Yeah, but the reason I gave you that explanation because year to year the number can change because of all those different variables. But really that $7.50 is meant to be a 3-day supply of food. It really is a gap measure to supplement, what they're getting through other things.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Commissioner Hoyler, any questions?
No questions.
Commissioner Chapman, any
No
questions?
questions.
Commissioner Purvis?
No questions.
No questions.
I have none. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Next, we'd like to invite Mark Holleran from CAS.
Good evening. My name is Mark Holleran. I'm the Chief Executive Officer for Central Arizona Shelter Services. We're located at 230 South 12th Avenue in Phoenix. As a just sort of an indicator of what our business is these days, there's a graph here, and just going from left to right, what this represents is our average daily occupancy by month for the last 5 years. And unfortunately, our numbers are up, and in the last several months, including January, we were up at over 1,000 homeless individuals, men, women, and children each night. So that's why I'm here. While the community at large has had some success dealing with specific groups of homeless individuals, such as veterans, because those groups are the beneficiary of some significant funding from a federal level, the community continues to be challenged, not only in Arizona, but throughout the United States. And so you're probably, I'm assuming, sitting there saying, okay, Mark, you're from downtown Phoenix. What's the connection? Why should Surprise be interested? We feel that what we do is addressing a regional problem. And your Vice Mayor, Skip Hall, actually met with me this afternoon, and it came to downtown Phoenix and had a tour of our campus. And he asked several questions, and one was, okay, Mark, so why? What do you do for us? Why would we be interested? I will tell you that last calendar year, we served 29 individuals that said that they had come from Surprise. And of those 29 individuals, they spent 1,630 nights in our shelter environment. So that means effectively we operated a 5-bed shelter for the entire year for Surprise. You need to balance this against some inherent problems that occur. And I toss this out for you to consider. If someone is homeless and say they were in Goodyear 3 months ago, and they were in Avondale 2 months ago, and they were in Glendale a month ago, and last week they were in Surprise, and now they present themselves at our shelter in downtown Phoenix, where is that individual from? And that is sort of the dilemma that we face when you look at a regional problem. I would ask that staff go back and look at, I think that was that last slide that showed what we were asking for. If you look at page 7 of our application, I think we indicated that we'd provide 1,260 nights of lodging for the $8,000 that we were asking for. This money would be used to offset basically the most significant cost that I have, and that is payroll costs. We have approximately 120 full-time staff. We run our facilities on a 24/7 basis, and we ask for your assistance in approaching this regional problem.
Commissioner Hoyler. Commissioner Chapman?
No questions.
No questions.
I have one question. You mentioned that you serviced 29 people that were from Surprise, and I forget the total number of nights. I believe you said it was a little bit above 600?
1,630.
Oh, 1,600. So what would be the cost for that? How much did you spend on the Surprise residents last year from your estimations?
Basically, it cost us $20 per night per person.
Okay. And it was above 1,200, you said?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Are there records that they have to fill out so that, is there a tracking system to see if Surprise, you had mentioned in some of the other programs where they have to actually be able to prove that it helped the Surprise. Do you keep names and records of people that come to you and from the Surprise?
If those individuals do identify themselves and give that specific information, yes.
But it's not actually required for them to do.
Well, you have to give us a name. You have to identify who you are. Average length of stay in general is about 45 days. So we typically don't have someone there for, hopefully, for an extended period of time. Most are honest with us. They present identification that they have. I'm assuming that most of the time that identification is correct. We don't do background checks or credit checks or anything like that. But there is a possibility that there are individuals there that aren't telling us the truth.
Commissioner Summers?
No questions.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Next, we'd like to invite Daryl Christensen from ABLE.
Good evening, Madam Chair and members of the Commission. I'm Daryl Christensen, Vice President of Community Integration at ABLE, and here with me is Jim Stewart, our Home Modification Program Coordinator. Tonight, we come asking for $34,558 in CDBG funding to provide for 8 households of home modification services. This budget also includes nearly $6,000 in contributions from ABLE in other cash resources and in-kind contributions. The goal is to provide home modifications for accessibility for persons with disabilities and seniors here in Surprise. Surprise residents citywide and who are homeowners and renters. The reason why this program is needed is that accessible housing is universally considered to be the most important and most difficult barrier towards integration into the community by persons with disabilities. This program also reduces falls, hospitalizations, nursing home placements, and such. Recently, we've been getting about 4 to 6 calls per month from Surprise residents requesting this service that currently does not exist, so we're unable to serve. This does meet the strategic initiatives of housing rehab and with a limited clientele, low to moderate income folks. And as mentioned before, persons with disabilities are a part of that group. The program structure is that we use licensed, bonded, experienced contractors to do the work. Work includes ramps, bathroom work, such as high-rise toilets, grab bars, pedestal sinks, door widening and such, ramps. And we also have a 10% match requested by the consumers, so that there's that buy-in, not a sense of entitlement, but with our independent living philosophy, we really do have that sense of partnership with the consumers. This program is in place. We've been providing CDBG programming in 4 other cities over the last 23 years. Actually, in Phoenix for the past 23, in Glendale for 18 years, Mesa for 15. In Peoria, we've been providing services for the past 13 years, as well as Scottsdale and Tempe for 2. Over the last 6 years, we've been working with the Arizona Long-Term Care Program, and we've done over 1,000 referrals for Altex folks. So we really do partner and provide this in the most cost-effective manner. So we really do know that you have a difficult decision with your funding, and we do request to be able to serve your community with home modification to persons with disabilities. And I'll certainly answer any questions that the commission may have.
You said you had 4 to 6 calls from surprise residents
Per month.
per month, and
Yes.
you haven't been able to help them, is that correct?
Without the funding, we haven't been able to. The only way that we've been able to is through if they're eligible for long-term care, LTACs. And otherwise, and there's no other service like this that we know of in town. So this type of, there's other weatherization and those types of programs, but specifically for accessibility, we just, maybe the VA or rehab services, but otherwise we would be able to fill that niche here with this program.
Commissioner Chapman, do you have any questions?
I have no questions.
I have no questions.
No questions.
I have none.
I have a question. Did you say the qualification was just to be disabled versus income qualification, or is it both?
No, it's low to moderate income, and they're
Low and moderate and
disability, right? And we do income verification with the Social Security award letters, bank statements, and anything else we have.
Those are the main ones.
Those are the main ones that. So we do get verification of income of household family income. Yes.
But one last question.
Yes.
In terms of scale, can you scale your services down in terms of if we were to fund you, if we funded you less or much less, would your program still work?
Certainly. We do have economy of scale, however, that if there were additional funds, we could be more efficient that way.
Yeah, I understand.
But less would be certainly acceptable as well. And we've done that, yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Euler.
No questions.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks so much.
Next, we'd like to invite Joanne Thompson from Benavia.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Joanne Thompson. I'm the Senior Director of Day Services for Benavia. So I oversee all 6 of our adult day centers in our child care facility. And we are requesting more money from the City of Surprise for the CDBG program for our home delivered meals program, our WordSees preschool and child care, and our day centers. Our home delivered meals program is the only one in Surprise that delivers meals besides the county program, and the county program has a long wait list right now. And in our home delivered meals, we have volunteers that deliver the meals to these seniors that are low income, and it's a meal from our Bert's Bistro, so we make sure to hit all the nutritional requirements. And also the volunteer goes into their home and talks with them and does kind of a welfare check to make sure that everything's okay, make sure they don't have any old or stale food in their refrigerator, and socialize with them and talk with them. And sometimes these people who are isolated in their homes, this is the only type of socialization that they may get. For our WordSees in preschool and childcare, we're located in the original town square. So right where we're at, we can offer high quality preschool and childcare for the families that are in that area. And we also have a family resource center that's funded by First Things First grant money that's located inside the preschool. So the families not only get childcare and preschool, but they get all the benefits from our family resource center of different programs that are out there. There's a beautiful library in there, all sorts of benefits from that. And then we have 6 adult day centers, and people from the City of Surprise can go to any 6 of our adult day centers that they'd like to. We're very specialized in our adult day centers. The one that's in the original town square is specifically for people who are in the early to moderate stage of a dementia. So it's a very social program. They do a lot of brain games, a lot of exercise, and then the benefit for their caregiver is their caregiver can take care of that person more throughout the journey of their dementia. We have Mary's Place that is for people who are going through the moderate to the later stages of dementia. We have a Sun City Restorative program for people who've had a stroke or who have Parkinson's. And I just want to bring up the point that when we have to move funding around from our 3 different programs that we have, it depends on the contracts. For example, the Area Agency on Aging has a sale and family care program. They have a wait list right now. Once they get monies again from the federal government, they open up their wait list so we can get the people who are on the City of Surprise CDBG on one of these programs, so they don't have to pay at all for our services. Instead of like for the CDBG, they have to pay a portion of it. So we do have to move monies around here and there just to meet the people's needs. Any questions?
No questions.
No, I have no questions.
When you're doing the moving of the monies and stuff, how long can that take, though? I mean, how far back can it go if you have to wait for funding or something open up?
Jane Bruzzese, as far as I know, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
And I guess my question was, Christina, to you is, how do you know that took a while to do, and how do we follow that? How do we keep track of what happens with that?
They do keep records of who's been in the centers, who's had meals delivered, who qualifies, who doesn't qualify. I know that for the use of, like, say, the home delivered meals, for a while they had a difficult time getting people to be on it, because even with the subsidization, they couldn't afford their portion of it. And so they weren't able to put the money out, and then they tried marketing for a while, and who they were servicing more at that time was like in the Sun Cities, and so they moved the funding over to adult day or to child care. And we usually do it administratively through a request process, but because they do record keep, they can tell us what days, what hours, and that sort of thing, so they can bill us on a monthly basis. And so, they can go back to when they needed it moved and backtrack that way. They have performed with regard to their audits. They've done the record keeping necessary and that sort of thing. I don't have anything to say with regard to that, but I know, like, original funding, we're still trying to close that. And the first year we had to do an extension and little things like that. And so that's just a point that we wanted to bring up.
And do you feel that is under control at this time?
Yes, I feel that's under control at this time. Yeah. Yeah, and with the 2014-2015 grants, we actually revised them a little bit more to make them more beneficial for the child care program, because before it was only, I think, $9.30 towards a day of child care, which if you're at 175% poverty level, how are you going to afford that? So we made it more of a balanced, so really people who are at 175% can afford to take their child there and then possibly go out and work and get back on their feet again.
Do you have a number of how many children are in the daycare program?
A total number of the amount of children, or the number of children on the CDBG?
No, just how many children do you have?
We have about 72 enrolled right now.
72?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
From Surprise, yes?
No, I don't know from Surprise. I can find out the specifics from Surprise. I can email you guys that, or I can get that to you.
And you're down, that is in Old Town, though, is that correct?
That's in the Old Town, right on Greasewood Street.
Yeah, fairly close. Okay. All right.
You asked my questions, and she answered them.
Good job. Mr. Hyler?
No question.
Commissioner Chapman?
Yes, I'd just like to ask, this grant specifically, the purpose is for meals?
So we actually have three different purposes. Benevilla likes to fulfill the need in the community, so it would be for home delivered meals, adult day center, or the child care and preschool. So we can hit a lot of different families with this.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Next, we'd like to introduce Jeremy Sod from Paradise Honors High School.
Good evening. My name is Jeremy Sod, and I'm the athletic director, or district athletic director for Paradise Schools. I don't know if you guys are familiar with our schools or not. Paradise Honors High School and Paradise Education Center. I'm requesting $50,000 to start a recreational and educational program for our schools. That money will go towards equipment and resources that will be used to provide these recreational programs. And I kind of outlined it here into three different power objectives. One of them is program design and community impact. The second one is experience and capacity, and the third one is the leverage. Program design and community impact. Our program is designed to offer recreational and educational programs to the city's youth. regardless of race, gender, nationality, and religion. All kids of any walk of life are encouraged to experience what our program has to offer. One of the main incentives to start our programs is to offer those kids that fall in the low-income bracket a chance to engage in fun and meaningful activities, skills, and games. There are thousands of families that can't afford other recreational programs offered throughout the city, and that's why we believe our program needs to be approved to assist and strengthen the youth of Surprise. The second objective is experience and capacity. As a school district, we clearly have the experience to administer recreational and educational programs. As a high school, we have the capacity and confidence to administer these programs through our facilities. There are people on our staff, from executive directors, teachers, board members, that have helped shape Paradise Schools into a thriving, competitive school district. Our members truly believe in helping our local communities, and that's why prep will be a success. The leverage. Prep will be conducted at Paradise Honors High School. PHHS will offer our 20,000 square foot gymnasium, which comes equipped with 6 adjustable basketball hoops, retractable bleachers that sit 500. There's also a weight room, storage room, locker room, showers, restrooms. We have a full-size football field, soccer field, softball field, and parking. For educational programs, we'll offer classrooms that are updated with teacher technology. We are offering a lot of leverage to make our recreational and educational programs exciting.
Commissioner Bennett, question.
I have a few questions. Yeah. So are these children that are only students in the Paradise?
No, it'd be kids from all over the city of Surprise. And originally I had it set up with kids with disabilities and special needs, but I got a call back from Christina that we had to open it up to everybody. So it would be opened up to all kids with disabilities, special needs, and all kids that we have to income qualify as well.
Okay, so there's students. So if it's going to be open to students who don't necessarily have a physical disability, they're a low income, how is that going to work? Because when I was reading it, I thought, oh, okay, it's going to be something for children who are possibly in a wheelchair,
right?
Basketball leagues or something like that.
I would just modify the lesson plans and make certain classes for kids that have special needs and disabilities, and classes for kids that don't have special needs and disabilities. That makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
That answers the question.
Do you guys charge any kind of participation fee? I know that a lot of public schools have to charge participation fees just because funding has been cut so drastically to public schools, so they have to charge participation fees. Do you charge any kind of fee for this service for families?
Well, for any kids that fall under the low income bracket that we have to income qualify, there won't be a charge for them.
And how do you determine that?
We would come up with some kind of paperwork that where we can income qualify those specific kids. I know there is like a scale that if you have like a family of 4, you can't earn more than like $45,000. So if we have a certain scale and a certain bracket, where if those kids fall into that bracket, then we would income qualify them.
And so you will charge a fee for students who are taking advantage of this program who don't fall into the low income bracket?
Exactly.
So since we are supposed to designate the funds to certain groups, low income being one of them, what's the snafu, I guess, with that? Providing funds for people who wouldn't fall into that low income, since this is opened up to students who fall out of that group.
Right. I think the discussion point here is when we were originally talking about children with disabilities, unfortunately and quite ironically, that is not a limited clientele. Because they belong to somebody else's household. When they become an adult with disability, then they're a limited clientele at that point. So the point being that whoever was using the equipment or whoever was using the benefit, 51%, a majority, would have to qualify. And so we discussed previously about maybe bringing up the fact of, say, more than 51% were on reduced lunches for the state or something, to show that the population in the school is at 51%. Therefore, if there were only students, then they would be okay. But not being able to prove that, then you would have to income qualify each individual and prove that 51% of the people using that piece of equipment would qualify. I guess an easier way in discussing in something of this nature would be to say a scholarship program where we would, let's say, give the fee for that particular family and do it that way versus buying the equipment and assuring that 51% of the people that touch that basketball qualified. It would work a little bit backwards in that we would provide the tuition, let's say, for each specific family.
Does there have to be something in place that's already set up to verify income before we award funds? Because, correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounded like there was nothing in place for that yet?
Nothing as of yet, no.
Right, and so that is something that we have to consider, that this would be a startup. And so we would have to assure that they would have the staff training, that they would have the staff in place to be able to do that, do the record keeping, that sort of thing, because it would be something completely new to this. So those were just some questions that I wanted you to be able to focus on and ask, just to assure that, you know, when talking about these resources, that we're investing in something that meets the national objective and some of the high priorities.
And just to kind of just piggyback on what you said on starting a new high school with the brand new athletic program, that is something that we would be able to administer, keeping track of all the records and income qualifying everybody. I don't think that would be a challenge for us.
Is that something that you can have by the next meeting?
March 6th, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep.
I have no further questions.
Now, this would totally not be any salaries or anything. You can, the money is just for equipment, is that correct?
Yeah, strictly for equipment. Everybody else that would, like, people that would be running the classes or the programs would be volunteers, or they would be teachers or coaches that we would pay ourselves.
Okay,
so yeah, none of the 50,000 would go towards, no.
Okay. All right.
No questions.
Commissioner Hoyt.
Isn't there, I thought the state had some way, or they have some type of validation for income. I think they do.
Okay.
Christina, don't they? The state has, there's a way to validate that through the state because of what they're applying for through state aid.
Right. They do have a different system for the state because they use poverty levels at 150, 200%, that sort of thing. So it is very low income. For us, it's 80% of median. Ours changes on a yearly basis, so whatever, whenever we would go into contract, that is the system that would apply.
So I was just sitting there thinking in my head how something along this nature would work regarding the 51% need. Just in my head. I'll have to think about it.
I think the tuition idea would actually be easier to make sure that we are actually giving to the right 51%.
And that would be probably something that I would recommend to the commission to request of the applicant to discuss with his administration, because obviously it's startup costs that he's looking for. And so would he be able to start the program and then get tuition assistance on the back end? That would have to be something that the administration, he would have to discuss.
Also wondering if it could possibly go both ways with startup as well as tuition reimbursement. I know the tuition reimbursement is an easier one to deal with, but you know, on the startup costs, yeah, that's something we just got to think and probably talk about in greater length about, you know, how does that exactly work? How are we going to prove that 51% is, you know, in the needy side of it? I'm sure it's there. It's just a point of proving that, you know, being able to provide that information that it is there.
What we've been able to do with schools in the past have been associated to free and reduced lunch.
Mm-hmm.
What percentage of your students meet for your reduced lunch? And that would give you a good snapshot as with regard to the quote-unquote low-income families within that school and users.
Commissioner Chapman?
Yes, I had a couple of questions. One of the concerns when reading this originally, it was talking about the handicap.
Yes, sir.
And I was wondering, under PL 94-142, which is a public law dealing with handicapped children,
Mm-hmm.
is there an assumption that they're underserved in order that you have a need for a grant? For
That was my assumption, that they were underserved, and that was kind of my main point of initiating this program. So, yeah, to answer your question, yes.
So the other is, I see that you're a high school, and I see quite an age variance from 6 to 21. Actually, PL ranges 6 through 21 to 22. How are you going to manage more than one type of program here dealing with different age groups?
Well, we just set up everything through different classes, through different days of the week, through the months, and through different hours. So, for example, let's say on Monday we'd have like a soccer class for kids that have disabilities, and we would have the age limit be from, let's say, 6 to 10. On Tuesday would be something different. Let's say we're doing like a badminton course. It could be for, kids without disabilities, ages, 12 to 15. So we would just kind of just modify our classes accordingly.
Okay. And I know you're requesting $50,000, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
I noticed that the program part of this for your startup costs is around $20-some thousand. I lost my place here. I noticed that there was a $3,000 charge for staff wages.
Okay.
Is that going to be deducted from the 27.8 that you have?
Yes, that will be.
Okay. Are there any matching funds?
Sorry.
Matching type funds that might go along with the support of this? In other words, out of the $50,000, would there be any in-kind money, such as the school itself providing staff?
Oh,
or volunteers?
matching funds. Matching funds, yeah, absolutely. We would provide staff and coaches. We would also use some of our equipment. We'd use our own facilities for the program.
Okay.
So there is a leverage there as well to make this program come alive.
And what about costs like utilities and other kinds of?
That's something that we would take.
Yeah, I think if you could think about those when we come back next time,
Sure.
that it might be well to say the in-kind, the part that because that can be substantial over a period of a year.
Absolutely.
Depending on the type of year, it might be helpful to your cause here. Okay.
Well, after speaking with our executive directors, we did agree that we would use our facilities for the whole program, for the whole entire year, regardless if it's our gym or a softball field, football fields, or classrooms. And that's everything from lighting to air conditioning, the whole deal.
I think it's important in that also you got budgeting and other kinds of financial records to keep and so on. So I think that if you looked at the in-kind, I think you're supporting a lot more than you're showing here, and I think you ought to take advantage of that.
Okay.
And I also have the same concerns about qualification. I think it's really important to make it clear to us how you're going to go about qualifying people or substantiating that part.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And to go off of what Commissioner Chapman said, I think another thing to think about is you're asking for $50,000, which is roughly 2/3 of the amount of money that we're allowed to allocate, and you're competing against some other very worthy causes as well. So I would ask, is this a program that you can feasibly start with, if you take into consideration some other expenses that are going to be coming up? If you were to receive considerably less money than the $50,000, is this something that you could still even do?
Absolutely.
To what extent?
Maybe to a lesser extent of less classes offering per month or per week. Maybe ordering less equipment for each program for the startup. That would be about it.
Okay. Thank you.
Commissioner.
The one thing you're having a lot of programs in here, not just for young children, but some teenagers as well as young adults. I saw it 6 to 21. Is it possible, have you looked at possibly partnering with other organizations here in the Surprise area to work with them to bring some of those people into your fold, into your classes?
Yeah, one of our wrestling coaches, he runs a foundation, Step Higher Foundation. It's a nonprofit organization, and he's willing to help out with this process.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Christina, before you call the last, one quick question. When this comes before us next March 6th, are all of the people going to have an opportunity to talk again at that time? Will we have questions and answering at that time also?
We could definitely invite them. It's a public hearing. Not all of them tend to come in the past, but some of them have. And I think that there's been a pretty good indication that there were some follow-up to a few of these, so we would ask for them to give us that.
Question is if we have question, I mean, obviously tonight we have other questions. How will we get that information if they're not here before March 6th? Will you be...
Excuse me, I'm sorry. Yeah, what we're doing is we're taking notes, and we're going to go ahead and contact each of those contact points and ask them to provide an answer in writing that we can go ahead and provide to you.
Very good. Thanks. Go ahead.
The last presenter tonight, we'd like to invite Mandy and Amy from Gotta Run.
Hi, good evening. My name is Mandy Sewardson, and this is Amy Giroux, one of our members. I'm one of the founders of Gotta Run, and this group was originally formed. We used to run, we still run actually in the parking garage right here on Monday nights. We do a little workout for ramps and stairs, and we used to run in the dirt parking lot actually right out here next to Come University. So one of the needs we saw was we needed to provide a safe, well-lit environment for our members. We actually started out with 6 members, and we currently have 60 right now. So when looking into what we needed to do, I looked into what we call the Road Runners Club of America. We affiliated with them. We created a nonprofit group. There is a charge to use the local high school track because many of our members work at night and work during the day, so the only time we have to run is at night, so it's after 6. So there's a cost for use of the track and the lights. We have insurance, we have dues. Many of our members enjoy the running that we provide, the support, the encouragement, the motivation. We work with the kids. We have members from age 4 to age 70. We have group runs, and people that see us running or we have our shirts on, they want to know how can they join if there's costs. And when we say there's a cost, a lot of them tell us they can't afford the $20 that it is right now for the quarter. We have partnered with the City of Surprise Recreation Department, which has helped. Our yearly costs for our other members we started with was $50 for the year. With the Recreation Department right now, they're charging $20 every 3 months. So it's actually a little more expensive, but it's $20, but they still find it expensive to join. And we're a group that strives to become as healthy as possible while encouraging others in the community to do the same. We have all abilities, from walkers to new runners to seasoned runners. And right now we're working with the kids. It's a very structured environment for both the adults and the kids, and it gives them an opportunity to get together and support, encourage, get a good workout, and just be physical. And this is Amy. I'm going to let her talk.
I wanted to show you a picture. This was me 6 years ago. I've never been thin. I was never active. I always wanted to be. And shortly before I turned 40, I set a goal for myself that I wanted to run a half marathon. And I started eating healthy, followed a healthy eating plan, and started running. And at that time, running was only a means to an end. I wanted to lose weight. I wanted to do a half marathon. And somewhere in there, between forcing myself to run 3 days a week, I found I loved it. And I found a group of friends that I could run with. And this has allowed me to become very healthy, much stronger. And I want to allow everybody this this gift of running. It's something that you can do for yourself. It doesn't require much except for a pair of shoes, and the track is an excellent place for people to get started, and money should not be an object to someone getting healthy. A lot of people are intimidated because of, they think running, I can't do that. If they're not there, I wasn't there. And that first step is what got me the ability to go out and run and be healthy and be a good role model. And money shouldn't be an object to that.
Thank you. Are you going to take the qualifications as the guidelines we have to pay? That's what you're using the money for, is to allow people to run if they're lower income and they cannot afford?
That would be correct. Like right now, I do have someone that we have on a scholarship because they couldn't afford to pay the dues. So one of our other members actually offered to pay the dues for this person. So we do have a board of 6 members, and we do meet, we discuss everything. And, you know, the scholarship program is something that we thought about, but we were lucky enough to have one of the businesses say that, you know, we'd like to sponsor someone, which was nice because this person could not afford it otherwise.
What do you want the money for then? What are you using the money for?
The money would be used to pay for the cost of the track, the lights, the rental, dues, insurance for this person. It's, you know, that's totally all we're using the money for. Nobody gets paid. The people that are out there, we're all volunteers. The ones that, I watch the kids while the parents run, and I do a different program with the kids that introduce them into running, so that some of the kids that come in really don't like to run. They come out and they tell me they don't want to run. And we just make it fun, and they see their parents out there being active. And I had one child last night, actually, we had practice, and he ran his first 3 miles. And he just kept going and going, and you know, he's never done that, and he, you know, it's nice seeing the kids want to actually get out there and be active.
And how often do you do this?
The weekly track, we meet weekly on Wednesdays, and then we offer the free, well, it's free, I say it's free, but we're here at the parking garage, which obviously does not cost anything because we're just running the stairs and the ramps. So we do 2 workouts.
Great. Steve? Any questions?
I'm wondering about how you would income qualify in order for us to provide the funding. You would have to have income qualified
I think
applicants.
If I followed it correctly, you're actually doing a scholarship. Is that correct,
We would do a
Christina? Is that
scholarship.
how they're looking as this to qualify is a scholarship type situation? Is that?
They did originally present it for payment for the tracks and the like, but the same would apply where we would have to do an individual scholarship type situation.
Have to be scholarship.
Okay.
Commissioner Hoyler.
No question.
Commissioner Chapman.
The scholarship program, would that be put into like an escrow account? I mean, you could only get money based upon reimbursement back for the qualified person?
Correct.
Okay. And the other question I have is, this is kind of new. Is there anything in the recreation department that parallels this, or?
Actually, we partnered with the recreation department when they found that we were a new running club. They said they needed something here in town. So when I went to them, I actually went to them to see about advertising in the catalog for the City of Surprise. And I met with them, and they said there was a need here in town for a running club, and would we be interested in partnering with them?
Okay, so you have some support from the city.
Yes.
Also, in just because it's new and you folks are runners, not budget people, do you have people that are runners or people that you can contract with that is going to be the other side of this coin, is to keep track and auditing all the things that you're doing and being able to submit reports and audit reports and so on?
We do. We have a treasurer. We have someone, and we have a secretary. We have 2 co-presidents, and we have a vice president. And then actually I am just the organizer, the the everything. So if something needs to be created, it will get created. The auditing, that's, we have plenty of people within our own group that would volunteer to do those type of things. No problem.
Thank you.
No question.
No questions.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
And that does conclude the presentations.
Thank you.
This is a public hearing, right?
Is this a public? I'm going to open it to the public. Anyone wishing to speak on this? Seeing none, I close it. All right. Commissioners, anyone have any comments or anything for tonight?
No comments.
Any further questions? Commissioner Hoyland.
Is there any way we can get some? Oh, that was sent to us, wasn't it?
I didn't get that either.
I believe it's listed on the back of the staff report. And it is being reiterated on the staff report that's going to come with the March 6th agenda.
Jerry, it's on the back of this. Okay.
I had one question, Madam Chair. The information you presented originally, you had consolidated all the applicants and the amounts and so on. Is that possible to get a copy of that?
That's going to be included also as part of the application, along with staff scoring.
Okay.
We wanted you to be able to just hear it, look at the rubric, and come to your own scoring methodology. But in the packet for the March 6th meeting, we will include the staff scoring. We're going to have the matrix that talks about some of the points that were brought up. We will include anything that has come back to us with regard to the questions asked. And all of the presenters will be invited to come on the 6th if they're interested.
One other quick question. Do we know that everything that we did last year when we donated to these, that money has been spent in accordance to everything? I mean, there hasn't, do we ever keep track if they haven't used all their money for a project or anything?
Where we keep track of that is actually in the CAPER presentation that comes in September after the close of the fiscal year. That's when we do give updates, but we'd be happy to give you an update at the next meeting also. We have had some organizations that have had a hard time starting and that we're discussing whether or not they're going to be able to meet performance measures and the like. So we can give you an update with that also.
I have a question, if I may. If an organization isn't capable of using all their funds, does it carry over the next year or does it go away?
No, it goes away with regard to public services, but it goes into the project pot. So the entitlement is exactly the same. Say it's $500,000. It just comes out of the 15% set aside and goes into the bigger pot.
It goes back
Correct.
To the bigger pot. Okay. Mm-hmm. And that can carry over if it's.
Yes, that can carry over for 3 years, or they have what's called a 1.5 expenditure process, meaning that they don't want us to at any time have more than 1 1/2 years entitlement in the bank, if you will.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Commissioners, any other questions? This meeting is adjourned.